Hey y'all, happy Sunday and welcome to this week's live Q&A session. This is the portion of the show where we allow YouTube to send out notifications that we're going live. If you're watching this live Q&A on replay, please scrub ahead until this graphic disappears and the actual show begins. If you're watching live and you have any comments or questions, please go ahead and put them in the live chat. But for now, grab a beverage, sit back, and relax while the countdown timer does its thing. Then we'll get started. Oh, such smooth music. Hey, y'all. Happy Sunday and a Merry Christmas to everybody. Today being Christmas Eve here in the in this hemisphere anyway. I know Stephen Main out there in Australia says it's already Christmas Day because they have that whole international dateline thing. So he's in the future. Cool. Merry Christmas to you, Stephen, and to, well, everybody. Everybody that celebrates Christmas, that is. And happy Hanukkah to those who don't celebrate Christmas. And for everybody who don't celebrate anything, happy Sunday. Uh, yeah, I walked myself into that. So, we've got a little bit of stuff. Everything is going cool here. Um, Let me do a little bit of housekeeping before I get started. I always forget to mention one person, and I swore to him I wouldn't forget him. And that is my buddy Bull Shanigan. He runs a tidy little Keebler tree over there on Facebook, a group called The Make. And there's a link to it down in the description box of this live stream. But he also does one-on-one Vectric training, live training. And there is also a link to his website. If you like some one-on-one live training, by all means, reach out to my buddy Bull. He's very good at what he does. He knows his stuff. Then he'll get you going. If University of YouTube is not really your cup of tea. So, that's who to contact for live training. He's very good, and he's again. There's a link down in the description to his website. I also want to do a little bit of possibly narrowcasting, and I want to give Michael Mazalek a shout out. Now, I got a little bit of insider information here, but I'm not going to steal his thunder. He has a video coming out tomorrow. 10:30 Pacific time, 10:30 in the morning, 1:30 Eastern time on rotation in job setup. That was very cool. Thank you for the sneak peek there, Michael. And oh my goodness, that was just awesome. So y'all got a treat coming tomorrow. Um, I'm serious. There's a link to Michael's YouTube channel down in the description of this live stream. And I'm here to tell you, if you are not subscribed to Michael's channel, you are totally missing out. Do yourself a favor, get over there, subscribe to his channel, and binge watch him. He's got some excellent tutorials over there. He is the 3D guru. Trust me on this. And y'all going to be surprised because that was one of those, oh my God moments. And as usual, I need to thank my buddy Steve over at Harneal Media, who's already busy here in the chat, linking everything that I'm talking about now. He runs another tidy little Keebler tree called Harneal Media, who is the sponsor of my website, Mark Lindsay CNC. And believe me when I say you want him on your team as well. Now, if you're ready to start selling your products or services, getting them out there in front of the public, and maybe you'd like to cut out a few of the middlemen like Etsy and what have you, folks who want a little piece of that pie that you're working so hard at, there's no better way to do it than with your own website, with a web store that you can then promote throughout your social media and get your friends and family to promote as well. Start developing some traffic. It's more than just that, though. He could hook you up with a print on demand company if you want to start selling merch with your logo. We're talking, your logo on stuff, t-shirts, hats, coffee cups, what have you. He could hook you up with that. He'll do as much or as little on the website side as you'd like. If you're already a website guru and you just need a host, hook up with Steve. If you are like me and know absolutely nothing about no websites, hook up with Steve. I'm proud to call him a friend. Again, he's the sponsor of Mark Lindsay CNC. And do yourself a favor. There's a link in every video on this channel to Harniel Media. Do yourself a favor. Go check it out. Talk to Steve. I'm serious. He knows what he's doing. Let's see here what we've got going today. Today, what I'm going to be doing is getting into some of the basics. And we've kind of been focusing on some of the basics here lately. Easily the most asked question I get is, how do I join vectors? And there are a lot of tools that can be used for joining vectors, but probably the number one issue that I see is something like this, where we have a vector coming along in this direction, a vector running along in this direction, and folks want to join these two vectors. Well, the simple answer to this is you can't. And here's why. Let me zoom in a little bit. Well, yeah, that's good enough right there, I think. Oh, come on, Mark. Drag it over that way. There we are. We have to go back and get super basic again and remember what is a vector. A vector is, it's not a line. Don't say it's a line, because that's not necessarily true. A line is a vector, but a vector is not a line. If I go into node editing mode just by tapping the letter N on my keyboard, what I have is 2 points. A vector requires a start point and an end point. Now, how you get to that end point, there are a couple of ways of doing it. You can have a distance and a direction, or you can just place the end point where you want it. So for instance, if I start up here at the top, I want to go 90 degrees down in this direction for a specific distance, say 3 inches. That's good enough. I can enter that information and I've got 3 inches in this direction. If I move to this one here, I've got a start point and I've got an end point. Here I can just click on this intersection and then click over here, and there is my vector. I've got a start point and I've got a stop point. Let's go back over to this vector right here. There is no start or end point here in the center. The short answer to this long explanation is you can only join vectors at a start point or an end point. Even if there is another point along this vector, let's go ahead and insert a point right here. I'll put my cursor right over that intersection, right click, and insert a point. So now I have a point here. I still can't join this vector to this point because it's not a start point or an end point. So what that means, what I'll have to do is select this vector again, and I'll put my cursor again over that point, right click, and I can cut this vector. So now I have 2 separate vectors here. I can join this vector to this one, or I can join it to this one. But now we have a situation where I have 3 vectors. Now, that's where working in layers comes in handy, because I can turn on another layer, make it active, turn off this first layer here, and it looks identical. But if I click on this vector here, I can see I have a start point, another point where it changes direction, and then bang, there's my end point. I still have, let me right click to come out of node editing. So that is one closed vector, or not closed vector, one joined vector. And then I have this one down here that is not joined to anything. Holy cow. Sargon Tavor with a huge super chat. Thank you very much, Sargon. Thank you very much. Most appreciated and totally unnecessary, but thank you very much. I really appreciate it, more than you'll ever know. Wow, that one kind of shook me up for a minute. Wow. Okay. So the simple point is I can join this vector to this vector, this half of this vector, if I want to. Or if I go over here to this other layer, turn it on to make it active, shut that other layer off, I can join this vector to this vector. But I can't do both. I can do either or. Now, what I also can do is turn on both of these vectors, or turn on, yes, both of these layers, and I have all of this turned on, and I can carve that way. If I still need a straight line down this direction, I can turn on both of those layers. And then carve that way. Now, there are other instances where we want to join vectors and we have issues. I'm going to do let me go back to layer 1 here so I don't destroy anything. Make layer 1 active. There we go. Okay. Let me delete that and let me draw a couple of lines out here, and we'll go like that, accept it. And we'll go like this and accept that. Okay. If we have zoomed in real close and we discover we have this situation going, there are several ways of handling joining these two ends. But once again, you have a situation where you can only join at a start point or an end point. Okay, Michael makes a good point here in talking about these vectors here. And let's turn that one off and turn this one on so that we have both of these layers showing. There may need to be a little bit of an overcut here, just so depending upon the geometry of the bit, simply because you're going to have, for instance, let's see, where's my start points? Go into node editing. Okay, this here on this one is the start point. So to do this, you're going to have the bit come down and then make a corner and head in that direction. Then for this one down here, the bit's going to start here and then come over in this direction and move down that way. There may be a little bit of a radius at that intersection. So you might have you might have a problem with that. So you may have to overcut in here. And let's see, how would we do that? Let's do, well, you could just draw a straight line vector all the way through. Let me get that here. Let me get out of node editing. All right. Oops, no. There we go. Take that vector there and no, let's not do it that way, Mark. How would we want to do this? Let's get on, turn off layer 3. There we go. Select that one. Okay, then we'll take this one here, go into node edit, and just drag that point right up there, about like so. So that when this cuts, it go into node edit mode. Here's my start point. It'll come down here and go like so, bit lift up. Then it'll come over here to this start point and finish that line up going that way. So that's just to clean up any possible radius issue you may have right here at this intersection. Because if you're coming along with a V-bit cutting using a profile toolpath on the vector, it'll just come down this way and just make that corner, and there may be a little bit of a radius left there. So excellent point, Michael. Thank you. Thank you for that. And there are many, many ways of handling that situation. So let's see, turn layer 1 back on, go back here and shut off layer 2. I use layers a lot. And do yourself a favor and do use layers. They're there to help. They're not there to confuse. And especially in situations like I have right here where I've got identical vectors on 2 different layers, I can turn one off, work in it, shut off, then turn on the other, then work on it, and they don't affect one another. I'm just the vectors in one another. I'm just working on that layer. So back to over here, we have a couple of different ways of handling this. If I want to connect this endpoint here to this endpoint here, I've got a couple of ways of doing it. If it's important that this vector meet here and this angle is not a concern, I can just go into node editing and drag that point to this end. Come out of node editing, select them, and join them. I've got 2 open vectors. After joining, I'll have 1 open vector. And that gets the job done. Control Z to undo that. If it's just important that these 2 get joined and the angles aren't really all that important, but we need to maintain a straight line and not have any bends or kinks in it, then we can come over to, there you are, extend vectors to a common point of intersection. We click on that, then we'll click this vector and then click this vector, and you notice that one projects outward. Now we still don't have a single vector, a single joined vector, but I can come in here with my trim tool, and as long as I have this check mark, rejoin trim sections automatically when the form is closed, I can just come in and trim that, close it, and now when I select, I have 1 joined vector. This vector did get trimmed, but here's where you have to decide on the priority. Is it more important that these 2 join, or that this one be of exactly that length. You have to remember that there has to be a common intersection. So either an angle is going to get changed or something is going to get trimmed if these both have to be straight vectors. Let me Control Z to undo that. And we'll use another case. We also have these three icons over here. These don't get a lot of love. So if you have not played with these, I would highly recommend that you do. We have join or close with a straight line. We have join or close with a smooth curve. And we have join or close by moving the endpoints to a common point. And all three will behave differently. Basically, we select the vectors, then we'll join close the vectors with a straight line. Now, what that did, if I go into node editing, on this line here, it took that endpoint, then projected another straight line and joined up with this one down here. So we have this bend there, this angle. If that's not to your liking, let me Control Z to undo that. We can come along and try a smooth curve. I've got them both selected. I'll click that. And again, they are joined. But if I go into node editing, I now have a Bezier curve right here that I can adjust. Make that shallower, make it a deeper curve, make it work its way in, work its way out. So that is another option there. Come out of node editing. Let me Control Z to undo that. Then the third choice we have over here is moving the endpoints to a common point. And basically what that's going to do is it's going to change the angle here, it's going to change the angle there, and it may also shorten or lengthen vectors. It's kind of a gamble on what you're going to get. So about all you can do is take a look at it and see what it does. It changed the angle of this one and made it a little bit shorter, and it didn't change the angle of this one so much, but it extended the vector. So now they are joined. I have a start point, this point down here, and then an end point up there. So there are several ways of accomplishing the same thing that is going to change angles or lengths depending upon which method you choose. But again, you have various choices to make. Now let me Control Z to undo this because there is another option that is within the node editing mode. So I'll select both vectors, go into node edit. And that's something a lot of folks don't realize is that you can select both. You can select more than one vector while you're in node editing. And you can select more than one point within node editing with two or more vectors selected. So I can, here in node editing, drag a selection box around these 2 points and they both turn red. That means they're both active. And I can use that just using my cursor keys. I'm going to go cursor right and scoot those over. Then I can go cursor left and scoot them back over. So you have a lot of options that you can do within node editing. But while we have these selected, let's right click And I have choices here. I can close, well, I've got points selected, so I can join the vectors with a line, with a smooth curve, or I can move the endpoints. So it's similar to what we have over here, but we're just working with these points. So let's go with move endpoints, and we've joined those vectors. IL Peleg says it looks like it moved both endpoints to the point in the middle of them. Yes, that's exactly what it did. It projects a common endpoint, as it says. Let me come out of node editing here. It says it moves the endpoint. Moves the endpoints to a common point. So they both get adjusted a little bit, but it's not like they suddenly went upwards. It's not a drastic shift. But again, it's whatever your priority is. If your priority is this vector must be at this angle, then your adjustment is going to have to be to this vector. If it's important that this vector stay at this angle, your adjustment is going to have to be on this vector. If it's urgent that they both stay at this angle, then that's where we extend vectors to a common point of intersection. Select this one, select that one, and they both stayed at those angles. It just extended this one. And now you can come along and trim it to join it. So what I'm getting at is when you're joining vectors, you have several options. Let me Control Z to undo that, and we'll go back into node editing. Tap the letter N to go into node editing, and I'm going to right click, and you'll notice when I go to close vectors, it's all grayed out here. And that's simply because these are so far apart. To close the vectors, it would have to, let me select them again, right click. If I want to close vectors with a line, it'll need to create more than one line, and it doesn't know where I want to go. What I mean by that is it doesn't know, do I want this to connect with this? Do I want this to connect with this? Do I want this to connect with this, or do I want this to connect with this? There are too many options. So closing the vectors, and it's the same with the smooth curve, and it's the same with the endpoints. So closing the vectors is not an option. I can join the vectors. And again, with a line, it's going to pick the two that are closest together and join that way. Come out of here, Control Z. Now, let's say, just for grins and giggles here, I have that right there. Come out of node editing, and I do that and select. Now I can close the vector. Hold down Shift and select that one as well. Go into node editing. But because I'm very close to being closed already, now I can close the vector. No, I can't. No, I can't. Well, let me join. Nope, I can't. So let's select these two. Go into node editing. Join the vectors with a line. Those are joined. Hold down Shift. Join vectors with a line. Now I have one single vector. Right click, close vector with a line. So I need one open vector that's almost closed. Close vectors with a line, boom. Now I can decide, do I need this point here? And if I don't, delete it just by tapping the letter D on the keyboard. But now, if I select this and go over here, I have one closed vector. So there are options. You have several different ways of accomplishing the same thing. Let me make sure that I'm in this here. Control Z to get out of that. And boom. All right. You have several ways of accomplishing the same thing. The thing to remember, and if there is one takeaway, just remember that you cannot join vectors anywhere other than a start point or an end point. You cannot join a vector anywhere else on the span of that vector. If you have to, for instance, well, let's go into my pirate here. Let that load up. And we'll get you up here. There are many, many areas where vectors could overlap and do overlap. But for instance, no, come on. For instance, up here where his beard comes up into his hat or into the black outline around his hat, I could not join those vectors. So I have to put them on separate layers. Okay? Just simply remember that. And trust me when I say, oh boy, do I have layers. So use layers to your advantage. They're not there to confuse you. They're there to help you stay organized. I would say probably 99 times out of 100 when I'm working with layers, I have one layer turned on. If that layer needs to interact with another layer, I will turn it on as well. But for instance, I'm working in the white layer here. I don't need the peach. I can turn that off. I don't need the brown. I can turn that off. I don't need the dark gray. I can turn that off. I don't need the medium gray. That's his sword. The gold is his earring. I can turn that off. I can turn off. I can't turn off. Yes, I can turn off his beard. I can turn off all these other layers that I'm not working with because the white layer is this up here around the skull. So at the most, I need the white and the black. So I can turn all of the rest of these off because they just simply don't interact with one another. They get in my way. And there's also the distinct possibility I could accidentally select something and move it, which I'm here to tell you is more of a pain than you probably want to know. So are there any questions at all about joining vectors or when you can, when you can't, or how to use which method? This is another one of those cases where there is no best method because each one has its own use, each one has its own application. And if you need a smooth curve, well, then the best method is the smooth curve. If you need a straight line, then one of the other choices is the best method. So it's these tools don't get a lot of love, and I think a lot of people forget they are there, especially the what is it? The extend vectors to a common point of intersection. And what I'm talking about is this one up here. It's right next to the weld tool under edit objects. So you got, or excuse me, the fillet tool. You've got the fillet tool, then you've got extend vectors to a common point of intersection. A lot of people forget that that's there. So, okay. While we're waiting to see if you have any questions on joining vectors, we have a few other questions out here. And let's see. LB Sharp has a question. Off topic, but mounting a bit in the collet. Some say to push the bit up close to the cutting area. Some say not to go past the end of the collet. I push close to the cutting area, and that stops a lot of chatter. I use an ER11 spindle. Okay, let me grab a collet and a bit real quick, or a couple of different types of bits real quick. 1/4-inch collet. Let's grab an end mill, and let's grab a V-bit. Okay, now I'm going to try to, hopefully everything will focus. So I got my collet, and I use an ER20 collet. And I've got my end mill, just a standard. This is a upcut spiral end mill. And just a real quick tip here. How do you tell the difference between an upcut and a downcut? Just take a look at the bit. And if the sharp cutting edge on that flute is on top, it's an upcut bit. If that sharp cutting edge of that flute is on the bottom, it's a downcut bit. Okay? A lot of people will look at it and try to, from the end, and try to figure out the spiral or the helix. But just remember, if the cutting edge is up, it's an upcut. If the cutting edge is down, it's a downcut. So I'll slip this into my collet. Now, the question is, some say not to go past the end of the collet. It's going to depend heavily on the bit, because some shanks are longer than others. So on this particular bit, if I push way down here to where the cutting edge is not quite going into the collet, I've got some bit shank sticking out the back. Generally speaking, this is not a good thing. The danger is you're going to bottom out against the taper, and that could damage that taper on that spindle. And what I mean by the taper is the receptacle that grabs hold of these fingers here and squeezes them in. If this bit shank is up against the top of the inside of the taper area, this collet may not be able to get up there all the way and squeeze on this shank. So if you move this bit up in this collet enough to where you're hitting the bottom of that taper, you've gone too far. If your cutting edge is touching the edge of the collet, you've gone too far. Now, I understand your point there, LB, about getting this closer to the cutting area stops a lot of chatter. And I do understand that point. And there's nothing wrong with that. Just keep the cutting edge out of the collet and don't let that shank touch the inside of that taper. And That's just simply because it could prevent the collet from cinching down tight on the shank. Now, another thing to be concerned with, because not all bits are created equal. If you look at the shank on this V bit, it's not very long at all. So I can push this all the way in, jam it all the way in, and it's still about 1/4 of an inch down from the end of that collet. Do not run this. You want this head of this bit about 1/8 inch out of the collet. So that's what we're looking at depth-wise there. The reason you want that bit about 1/8 inch out of the collet is because of, let's see if I can get it to focus and keep my fat fingers out of the way. If you look, there is a radius where the shank meets the head. That is not a straight 90-degree angle where the shank meets the head of that bit. That's a fillet. They do that to prevent cracking. This head is brazed onto this shank. If you get that fillet up into the collet is trying to tighten around that fillet. One little bump and that can come loose. And you do not want this to come sailing out of that collet at 16,000 or 18,000 or 20,000 RPMs. That's a missile, just looking for a target to hit. So on something with a brazed head like this, get it to about 1/8 of an inch away. Maybe a little more, that's fine. Because you have the rest of that entire collet surface to grab hold of. It's going to grab the entire shank. Now, what I used to do, I don't have one here now, with my old touch plate is it had an alligator clip where it would clip to the shank to ground it so I could use my touch plate. So I used that alligator clip as a spacer. If I could get that alligator clip around that shank, I knew I was far enough in, but also far enough out to where it wasn't trying to grab that fillet on that shank, and then just pop it in, tighten it up. So, everybody has their own method. Now, I don't have one right here handy, and I really can't remember the manufacturer's name, which one that does this. But on the shank of some bits, if you look, you'll have the company name and all that other good stuff. Some of them have a marking that looks like the letter K as you're looking right there. This one doesn't have it. But that is not a letter K. That is a line with an arrowhead pointing to it. That line is the minimum they say to put that bit in that collet. You can go beyond it, but that's the minimum. That's how much shank you should have in the collet. So what you're doing, LB, is fine as long as that shank is not touching the inside of your taper. It should be away from the taper by about a minimum of 1/8 of an inch. So if you put your collet up in there, get your bit in there and smack that inside of that taper and pull it back down about 1/8 of an inch, you should be fine. So there we're getting into the opposite of extended bits. Extended cutting length bits are going to give you chatter. It's just the nature of the beast because you have so much bit sticking out of that collet. One least little bit of it if it's out of concentricity, just the least little bit, it's going to chatter. big time. Okay, Michael Mazalik says it's Amana Tools that has that K mark. Yeah. Okay. Great. Great. Let me set these back over here so I don't forget them and have more stuff piled on my desk than I need. Do I have an Amana bit here handy? I do. Is that K mark on here? Nope, it's not on that one. Okay. Well, I don't have a whole heck of a lot of Amana bits. Um, um, well, it's not on this one either. Oh, well. I know I wasn't seeing things. I have one that has that. I just can't think of which one it is. It's neither of my Amana tools. So that's the long answer to the short question. Let's see. Robbie wants to know, would you explain the process of making a two-sided project? I know the Vectric process, but I'm confused about the physical process on the CNC. Okay. I have a video. In fact, I have a two-part series. I think I have more than one, where I created a home sweet home sign, and that was done to show how to import a project that was done on somebody else's computer. I will go find that video series. It's just two parts, and I will link them in the description below. In the first episode, in part one, I imported the project, got it all set up with my tools, calculated all the tool paths, saved G code. In part two, I took it outside and physically cut it on the CNC machine and showed how to mount it, how to use the locating dowels, etc. And it does work. But I'm going to give you fair warning, Robbie. Once that clicks in your head and you get it, you have that light bulb moment. Double-sided projects are addictive as heck. You will come up with reasons to do more two-sided projects, I'm telling you. So if you don't want to get in that, stop now. But okay, I've written myself a note. I will put the links in here. Steve has already got one of them in there. Great, terrific. Thank you, Steve. I appreciate it. Excuse me. Um, Two-sided projects are a lot of fun, and like I said, they're addictive as heck. And that's something that you can do to kind of set yourself apart from some of the others. I mean, you'll see a lot of folks making dishes or bowls on CNC routers. And even if it's something simple, let me throw this out there as a possible project that you can use for scrap woods. Guitarists love pick dishes. All it is it's a little dish, usually in the shape of a guitar body. Fender people like the Stratocaster or the Telecaster shape. And if you look online, you'll find all kinds of vectors for different guitar body shapes. And it's a simple dish. You just pocket out the inside, then cut out the outside. To separate yourself from the rest, flip it over and do a nice round over around the edges on the bottom, and maybe V-carve your information on the bottom of it. That sets you apart from all of those people out there that have nice dishes and bowls with straight sides and nothing on the bottom. Flip it over, do something artistic on the back, and that will put you up above the other guys. And pick dishes is just one of those examples. And they're very, very easy to design, very, very easy to make. So, and you can get away with using scrap woods. I don't have a piece right off the, yeah, I do too. That little scrap piece of walnut would make an excellent pick dish. And here is my tape. That is 6.5 inches long or 16.5 centimeters. Wow. 6.5 inches or 16.5 centimeters, and 4.5 inches wide or just under 11.5 centimeters. That'd make a great pick dish. And this is something that somebody else would throw in the burn pile. Cut that into the shape of a Gibson Les Paul, and you've got a pick dish you could sell for, 10-15 bucks. Whatever. Take them to a local guitar shop. Say, I can make you as many of these as you want. Just saying. Vortex 8 has a question. I'm going to do a big cleanup on my machine after the holidays. Is there anything I should look out for or tips you might have? Also, I need to clean my spindle and collet. Do you have any recommendations on how to do it? I have a lot of recommendations. Get yourself a little yogurt cup or something similar, a little container, and take your collet, and let me find it. Where you at? Where you at? There you are. Drop your collet in that yogurt cup. Forget about the brand name. 91% isopropyl alcohol. Drop it in there when you leave the shop that evening. Come back the next day. Take a old toothbrush, or if you feel like getting fancy, go down to the grocery store, the big box store, and get a denture brush. It's back where the toothbrushes and toothpastes are. Get you a denture brush. Take that collet out of that alcohol the next morning, scrub it down, blow it out with canned air or compressed air, and do the same thing with the with all the collets and nuts. You can do the same thing. You can wipe down the shank of the bit. Other than that, I cheat like a big dog. I open up the double doors, fire up the leaf blower, and blow all the junk out the doors. I wear a dust mask when I do it. If I've been doing a lot of MDF, I do use my respirator. But leaf blower works real well. I call that a mass evacuation. This is 1 quart, 946 milliliters. I think I paid $4 for it. You know, if you have to clean something up fast now, you can use mineral spirits. Denatured alcohol does work, but that soaking it in denatured alcohol is usually better than trying to wipe it. Mineral spirits works, or VM and P naphtha. And let me go ahead and put that in the chat because it's real easy to misunderstand. VM and P naphtha. It's the VM and P stands for varnish makers and painters. Naphtha. I can get it by the gallon down at my local Lowe's, and that and a like a denture brush or an old toothbrush will work. Take whatever it is you're using to clean out your clean your collets. I prefer the 91% isopropyl alcohol, and I take Q-tip, and while that collet is soaking, dunk the Q-tip into the alcohol and clean out the taper on the underside of the spindle. And that's generally speaking about all the maintenance your spindle is going to need, but clean all that junk out of there. And Michael is correct. Very flammable. All of it is. VM&P naphtha, 91% isopropyl alcohol, lacquer thinner, um, um, mineral spirits, all of it very flammable. So make sure you're well ventilated area and don't smoke. You shouldn't smoke anyway. That way, I smoke, but not when I'm doing that. Um, Other than that, give everything a good wipe down and follow your manufacturer's instructions or recommendations on lubrication. Um, a lot of people give me a little bit of, yeah, no blow torches, and shut off the diesel heater. So um, a lot of people give me a little bit of backlash because I use um, lithium grease on the bearings on the Avid. But that is the manufacturer's recommendation. And I keep trying to tell them, look, if you're worried about that grease attracting dust, you're using too much grease. You're supposed to be lubricating the bearings, not that entire linear rail. You're just lubricating the bear, 1-2 squeezes. That's it. You're lubricating the bearings, not the rails. Follow the manufacturer's instructions and go over it and lube it up. All of your bearings on, your X, your Y, your Z. If you have, well, just follow your manufacturer's instruction. How about an ultrasonic cleaner? If you have an ultrasonic cleaner, go for it. And then you can use the degreaser of your choice. I mean, um, it again, it depends on what you're trying to clean up because some things work very well on water-based uh, gunk. Some things work very well on oil-based. Some things like simple green or what have you, if you put simple green in your ultrasonic cleaner, drop that collet in there and give it a buzz or two. I mean, you can't damage it. Just remember that no matter what you do, blow it out with clean, dry air, whether it be from your compressor or, yeah, I threw it out, whether it be from your compressor or from a can from Walmart. Just blow it out to get any kind of, you want to keep water out of there. And even 91% or 99% isopropyl alcohol has some water in it. And you want to blow that all out to keep it from corroding, you know. But also remember that collets do have a lifespan. And that's why you can take them out of the nut. Well, that's one reason. The other reason is you can have 12 or 13 collets and only one nut. But they do have a lifespan. Inspect them, and I mean, get in there with a bright light and a magnifying glass. I mean, you don't have to put it under a microscope or anything, but look at it. And if you see any cracks at all, it's time to replace that collet. That's all there is to it. They are a consumable item. They have a lifespan. Depending upon how hard you run your machine, they may last you the rest of your life. They may last you 5 years. They may last you a year and a half. It just depends on how hard you run your machine and if you're like me and drop stuff a lot. So yeah, 5280 Woodworking says Shop Saber tells me to grease the rails. So again, do what they say. Yeah, a lot of folks, and I don't get this. I really don't. Maybe it's a me thing. A lot of folks immediately will go elsewhere, go to the internet for maintenance tips and things like that, or even troubleshooting. When you buy a machine, part of what you're buying is product support. So go to the people who know your machine best. They built it. They did the research and development. And I trust what they say. I'm going to listen to the folks at Avid before I'm going to listen to some guy I've never met before online. You know, yes, you physically could put oil in those bearings, but why would you? I mean, Avid says use a lithium grease. That's what I'm going to use. They say grease the bearings, not the rails. That's what I'm going to do. If Shop Saver is telling you to grease the rails, do what they said to do. So, I mean, they built the machines. They know it best. They've done the research and development. They're not going to feed you to the wolves and tell you to do something that's going to damage your machine because they have a reputation they have to uphold as well. So follow their instructions. It would also be, depending upon how hard you've used it there, Vortex, that also maybe before you clean everything up, it should be a great time to surface your spoil board. So you can surface your spoil board, and if you seal it, and then start cleaning everything up. That way you're through that whole MDF dust storm. Ask me about that. I know about that, believe me. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, they're 5280 woodworking. There may be small details on why or why not, one way or another. Yeah, yeah, absolutely. So, all righty. Well, look, I want to say thank you to everybody. We're getting close to the end um, of the year, that is. And I wanted to say thank you to everybody for uh, everything over the past year. And I wanted to, those of you who have donated to the various causes I have promoted for folks that needed help, those of you who have become channel members and continue to be channel members, those of you who have just watched my videos and come participated here in the Sunday live streams, either while we're live or on replay. Uh, those of you who um, yeah, do the super thanks, do the super chats. Um, just watch the videos, share the videos, and leave me comments and suggestions. Um, I really appreciate every one of you more than you'll ever know. And just from me to you personally, thank you for your support. I hope you and yours have a very Merry Christmas. And just, I wish nothing but the best for you for for the rest of this year and into the next. Speaking of channel members, remember there will not be a members only live stream tomorrow. It's Christmas. We have postponed that to Wednesday, the 27th, same time, 5:30 Pacific, 8:30 Eastern. We're going to talk about a couple of things that I think you're going to find interesting, but it will not be tomorrow. Again, the 27th, Wednesday, the 27th. So hope to see you then. For everybody else, if you don't know what I'm talking about or you'd like some information on becoming a channel member, just click that little join button right next to the subscribe button, and a little panel will pop up and a video is going to open up, and you will get some information. That video will play and tell you all about channel membership. Yeah, Jack. Us channel members kind of took a poll, kind of took a vote, and we decided that would be best. So I'm gonna miss Garrett's show next week and the week after because we're doing the same thing for New Year's. So yeah. Okay. Again, thank you everybody. I really appreciate all of y'all more than you'll ever know. Next week we'll figure something out. leave me a suggestion down in the comments of this video. If you need to know something that I didn't go into, if you want to deeper dive into one thing or another, I'm going to go find these two-sided machining videos and link them in the comment or link them in the description. The rest of you made it through another one. Tomorrow's the big day. Take a break. Pull up a beverage. Take a break. You've earned it. I'll see you next week. Y'all take care.